各位观众朋友，大家好。现在是北京时
Dear
间
audiences,
7月2日
good
晚8
evening.
点。
It is April the 2nd, 8 p.m. This is the live streaming of Chinese Solution Global Sharing, organized by Health News, supported by Mindray. I'm your hostess, reporter Liu Lixia from Health News. A pleasure to meet you online. Recently, China summoned national efforts to combat the outbreak of COVID-19. The situation of the pandemic continued to improve and had periodic achievement. At present, the pandemic is spreading rapidly around the world, and China has accumulated a substantial amount of valuable experiences in the prevention and control of the pandemic, hoping these experiences can be of referential value for other nations. On March the 22nd, we organized the first global live streaming that attracted domestic and international attention. Today, we do it again to share Chinese experience and Chinese solution. In today's event, we are fortunate to have invited 5 frontline hospital managers. They are Director of Zhongnan Hospital of Wuhan University, Mr. Wang Xinghuan, Secretary of the Second Affiliated Hospital of Xi'an Jiaotong University, Mr. Guo Shouping, Deputy Director of the Second Xinyang Hospital of Central South University, Xu Junmei, Deputy Director of Chengdu Public Health Clinical Center, Mr. Zhang Renqing, and Chief Head Nurse of Operation Unit, Wuhan Union Hospital, Madam Gao Xinglian. Thank you for attending today's event out of your busy schedule. Later on, they will share their precious experiences and real thoughts and feelings. We also have Director Deng Haihua from Health News to attend this event, and Senior Vice President from Mindray Group, Mr. Li Zaiwen. First, please join me to welcome Director Deng Haihua to deliver his remarks.
尊敬的各位院领导、各位专家、各位同仁，以及来自全球的
leaders, experts, comrades, and international friends. Good evening. Welcome to Chinese Solution Global Sharing, Episode 2, jointly organized by Health News and Health China New Media Platform, supported by Shenzhen Mindray Technology. On behalf of the organizer, I'd like to say a big thank you to the directors and experts for your hard efforts to combat the COVID-19 outbreak. Thank you for your participation and sharing, and thank all the international audiences for your attention. After the outbreak, Chinese government attached great importance to it. President Xi himself directed the battle against the pandemic. With concerted efforts, the outbreak is now under control, and the State Council has established a joint prevention and control mechanism and effective measures to contain the spread of the virus. With the joint efforts of the nation and its people, basically, the outbreak has been contained, and economic production and people's life are being restored. This is a worldwide outstanding achievement. However, the spread of virus knows no boundaries. The number of infected patients are increasing in a surprising speed, and this is a major threat to people's health and safety, and also pose a major threat. To share Chinese clinical experiences is very important to prevent the virus from further spreading. On March the 22nd, we have successfully organized the first live streaming event. We invited 5 hospital managers to share Chinese solutions and transmit Chinese strength and Chinese competence. There are 2.33 million audiences watching this event, and we have over 320,000 likes, and also have over 40,000 expatriates, experts, and audiences. They have raised over 1,000 questions related to the prevention and control of the pandemic. In 1 week, Health News and Health China platform, we organized 3 live streaming events successfully. Today, we organized another global live streaming event. We have specially invited Secretary Gong Shouping, Director Wang Xinhuan, and Deputy Director Xu Junwei, Deputy Director Zhang Renxing, and Chief Nurse Gao Xinlian. They are the frontline fighters and experts. Later on, with their first-hand experience, they will demonstrate the real battle scenario against COVID-19 to jointly discuss how to efficiently mobilize medical resources. And through social media, these experiences and Chinese solutions will be straightforwardly transmitted around the world. And all these precious experiences we have accumulated and gathered, I hope they can be of referential value to other nations and to play an instrumental role to prevent COVID-19 from further spreading. I wish today's live streaming a full success. Thank you.
感谢邓社长。作为中国国家卫生健康委员会
Thank you, Director Deng.
最具影响力的行业
As the most influential industrial media supervised by National Health Commission, Health News has conducted a lot of media coverage and dissemination of scientific knowledge against COVID-19 and have uncovered precious experiences in the prevention and control of the pandemic. Coming next, please join me to welcome Senior Vice President from Shenzhen Mindray Group, Mr. Li Zaiwen, to deliver his remarks.
Dear President Deng Haihua, Honorable Director Wang Xinhuan, Gong Shouping, Xu Junmei, Zhang Renqing, and Chief Head Nurse Gao Xinlian, distinguished leaders and experts from hospitals around the world, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and good afternoon. First of all, on behalf of Mindray, please allow me to extend the highest respect, the most heartfelt thanks, and the sincerest blessings to all the medical workers around the world fighting against COVID-19. At present, the novel coronavirus outbreak has become a serious global public health challenge. Although countries around the world are in different phases of fighting against the virus, and their medical systems and technology levels are diverse, we firmly believe that openness, sharing, and collaboration are the key for us to defeat the pandemic. As the first country affected by COVID-19, China has accumulated much experience and effective methods in combating the coronavirus. We hope to make a contribution to the international community for maintaining global health security by sharing our experiences and best practices. A few days ago, based on our efforts in combating the coronavirus, the National Health Commission of China, NHC, summarized Chinese solution, in which NHC shares China's experience across multiple aspects of epidemic response, including prevention and control, diagnosis and treatment, and material support. As one of the leading medical equipment suppliers in China market, Mindray has made positive contributions to epidemic tackling in diagnosis, treatment, and material support. We extensively mobilize our employees and our upstream and downstream partners to take the lead in work resumption on the second day of Chinese Spring Festival holiday, and immediately delivered nearly 3,000 medical devices to Hoshinshan and Leishanshan Hospital, the two designated hospitals for COVID-19 case treatment in Wuhan, and then delivered more than 50,000 units to the hospitals across China designated for coronavirus case curing. Mindray is also planning to deliver more than 10,000 devices to Italy in near future, and provide more equipment and solutions to countries around the world. Under the background of worldwide epidemic prevention, to fulfill the urgent and special demands, Mindray is capable of providing, with one-stop service, nearly 70% of the devices required by the infectious disease hospitals, covering the core departments such as clinical laboratory, ICU, emergency department, and medical imaging department. With its products and services, Mindray offers powerful support to hospitals for their overall configuration and standardized equipment management. Mindray's smart, user-friendly equipment help to improve the efficiency of medical staff and shorten the training time. The devices featuring automation and being easy for disinfection also help to reduce nosocomial infection. The pandemic situation changes rapidly, and different medical ecology in various countries will continue to affect the evolution of the epidemic. Therefore, the Chinese solution shared today will also keep progressing into European solution and global solution. As a medical device and solution supplier, Mindray has been respecting the diverse conditions of each country in the world. We will focus on closer communication and collaboration and try to deliver the supplies most urgently needed in the most effective and optimized way. Mindray will continue to make a contribution for global solution in the aspects of material support, diagnosis, and treatment. At last, I wish this global webinar a great success, and I wish we will win the war against COVID-19 as soon as possible. I wish all the present experts to take care of yourselves. Thank you all.
感谢李总，感谢迈瑞公司对中国疫情防控工作做
Thank
出
you,
的贡
Ms.
献。
Lee, and thank Mindray for your contribution to the prevention and control of this pandemic in China. And I hope Chinese solution, together with the other nations' solution, can form a global solution. Next, we enter into the main session of today's live streaming event. We ask the frontline hospital managers to share their experiences and thoughts. The first speaker is Director Xu. Director Xu is the Deputy Director of the second Xinyang Hospital of Central South University. Director Xu is also the Deputy Director of Wuchang Mobile Cabin Hospital. The medical team he led created MDT model that was regarded as the template for all mobile cabin hospitals. With the successful closure of the mobile cabin hospital, at present, Director Xu has returned to Changsha. Please turn the screen to Director Xu.
Hello everyone, I'm Xu Junmei from the 2nd Xianyang Hospital of Central South University. Today, we want to share with you the establishment and operation of mobile cabin hospitals against novel coronavirus pneumonia. It is divided into 4 parts: the sudden outbreak of COVID-19 epidemic, the cabin construction amid crisis, life-saving efforts made at the cabin, and the spring-like bombs felt at the mobile cabin. In late 2019 and early 2020, the novel coronavirus pneumonia broke out in Hubei province. These data are from the website of the National Health Commission. The first case was confirmed on December 8th. Nucleic acid testing was completed as early as January 10th. Cases of the pneumonia were found in Wuhan before January 19th and in 4 provinces and municipalities on January 20th. The number of virus-hit provinces and municipalities rose to 13 on January 21st, 25 on January 22nd, and 29 on January 23rd. On January 23rd, Wuhan was locked down. A total of 30 provinces and municipalities were hit by novel coronavirus pneumonia on January 25th, and the number increased to 31 on January 28th. Obviously, the number of cases were growing faster. The number of confirmed coronavirus cases in China increased to 17,205 on February 2nd and 28,000 on February 5th. I'm from the 2nd Xianyang Hospital of Central South University, which has a history of a century, actually a history of anti-epidemics. From the diphtheria, smallpox, then plague, bacterial warfare, cholera that appeared when the hospital was founded, to trachoma and schistosomiasis control that occurred after the establishment of PRC, there always have been the figures from Xianyang. So on February 4th, I took the initiative to lead the National Emergency Medical Team consisted of 42 members from the 2nd Xianyang Hospital of Central South University to Wuhan together with 10 medical equipment vehicles. This is the scene where our team members departed for Wuhan. Secondly, the cabin construction amid crisis. On February 2nd, 31 provinces and municipalities reported 2,829 more confirmed cases, which pushed the total to 17,205. Therefore, with the number of cases of novel coronavirus pneumonia increasing substantially in a short time, it was difficult to find a bed in Wuhan hospitals, as most patients were mild and moderate cases, and the medical requirements were undemanding. They could be admitted to less well-equipped medical facilities. Thirdly, if the hospitalization issue for mild patients is solved, more beds would be available for critical patients. Therefore, there was a strong social demand under the backdrop. Could the issue be solved by constructing mobile cabin hospitals? A mobile cabin hospital is a part of field mobile medical system of the People's Liberation Army, which is widely used in various emergency situations. It is generally composed of medical function unit, ward unit, and technical support unit, etc. This modularized medical facility has many functions such as emergency treatment, surgical treatment, and clinical test. Then could we build more cabin hospitals to receive and treat mild cases of novel coronavirus pneumonia? It is a scientific judgment that there should be no cross-infection between patients with novel coronavirus pneumonia. Secondly, practicality. The mobile cabin hospital has three basic functions: isolation, treatment, and monitoring. Third, feasibility. It is possible to use the local sport halls, convention centers, schools, etc. to build mobile cabin hospitals in tandem with the equipment vehicles from the National Emergency Medical Team, which feature large capacity, time efficiency, and low cost. In a word, from the aspects of its scientific nature and practicality, as well as condition at the time, it is fully acceptable to build a cabin hospital to receive and treat mild patients of COVID-19. Therefore, on February 3rd, the superior authority made an immediate decision to establish mobile cabin hospitals. Of course, there were also concerns and difficulties. Three major concerns. First, whether the patients are willing to enter the mobile cabins. Second, the issue of cross-infection of other epidemics. Third, the risk of mass incidents. Three major difficulties. First, there was a shortage of life and medical supplies. Second, the hospital were understaffed. Third, it was difficult to establish a medical system and procedures suitable for the diagnosis and treatment of highly contagious COVID-19 pneumonia in the short term. As the first supportive team arriving in Wuhan, we took the lead amid crisis and fully participated in the key tasks of ward transformation. We quickly set up the camp, put the tents up, made suggestions for transformation, and worked overtime with workers to race against the time. We worked from the evening of February 4th until 4 a.m. on February 5th. In this way, the mobile cabin hospital was basically completed and underwent inspection by the leaders from National Health Commission on the morning of February 5th. On the evening of February 5th, we started to admit and treat patients. On February 5th, the reported confirmed cases totaled 28,018. The number grew fast. We started treating the first patient at 11 p.m. on February 5th. After pre-screening triage, the patients were sent into the cabin. Comprehensive protection measures had to be taken. Enter the cabin for patient rounds. The third part is saving lives at the cabin. When the cabin started to operate, we had to lift the above-mentioned three major concerns and overcome the three major difficulties. We proposed a 3-0 goal: zero infection of medical staff, zero deaths of patients at the cabin, and zero return of discharged patients. Only in this way could we strictly implement the central government's order and resolutely accomplish the task of leaving no COVID-19 patients unattended. The mobile cabin hospital set up a leadership structure. I was the deputy director in charge of medical work. 2 offices in 3 departments were established: the office, medical department, nursing department, infection department, and material security office. A joint working mechanism created among 4 national teams and the provincial team. The operation mode is: the hospital infection control department took charge of infection control. Doctors and nurses coordinated with each other. Both Chinese traditional and Western medical measures were taken. Psychological counseling services were offered to patients. Consideration was given to the health of children. Internal and external peer system was established. Support was given by pharmacy, drug technology, and party building departments. As for hospital infection control department taking charge of infection control, our nosocomial infection experts stayed up all night to work out the plan, according to which the cabin was divided into 3 zones namely the contaminated zone, semi-contaminated zone, and clean zone. Totally, more than 500 medical staff from all over the country, as well as local police, security guards, and health personnel, got trained in 13 batches. This is a photo taken during training. The doctors and nurses made joint efforts to carry out ward runs together. Both Chinese traditional and Western medical measures were taken, and special attention was given to the advantages of Chinese traditional medicine. And Chinese traditional medicine was available for every patient. Combined with Western medicine of Episodio, we used traditional Chinese medicines including Lianhua Qingwen and soup dispersing Lang Qi and removing toxic substance, and add antibiotics if the patient's lung were infected. Focus on nursing, of course. Nursing work is very important. The nursing department of our hospital directed the nursing runs of the mobile cabin hospital and strengthened the care, health education, and psychological counseling of key patients. We developed the workflow, handover procedure, throat swab sample collection, and delivery procedure, nursing procedure, and contents. We established 1M2C3S nursing management system. We also provided the team with theoretical training, simulation operations, on-site training, etc. More than 500 nurses at the cabin completed throat swab collection training in 14 batches. This picture was taken during the training. We provided psychological counseling for patients. As many patients were under great psychological pressure, we had been taking relevant manuals with us, such as step into the cabin and step out of the cabin, and carried out psychic oxygen bar to conduct one-on-one psychological consultation. In order to do well in spiritual care, we initiated Soul Home program and carried out many activities of various formats, such as I Want to Tell You, Heartfelt Wish, Here is a Painting for You, and the singing contest of I Am a Singer at the Cabin, etc. These are the manuals we compiled, which are highly endorsed by the National Health Commission. These are words written by patients participated in the Soul Home program. Considering the demand of sick kids, pediatric experts joined our team. For children and adolescents, we gave special protection, medication, and psychological support. Some patients combined other medical and surgical diseases. We invited medicine and surgery specialists for consultation. For example, this patient had a fracture. We put him in a cast, which worked well. As for laboratory tests, blood routine, CRP, blood biochemical, and antibody tests were able to be done at our cabin. As for radiology work, we were able to conduct chest radiography, chest CT, and examination and organize consultations. This is the statistics of each process, which is very important. All the data of all patients in the cabin can be aggregated in this table to evaluate the patient's examination arrangements and discharge arrangements. Rules and regulations. I was the deputy director in charge of medical treatment. We established all the necessary systems to ensure efficient cooperation and joint research among teams from various hospitals. For instance, these are the work procedures for removing protective equipment, work tasks, work plans, and the first aid procedure of common critical cases. We never ignore team building. We know teamwork is very important. All the medical treatments, hospital infection control, nursing, medical laboratory, logistics, and material supplies were achieved in concerted efforts. The logistic personnel guaranteed the electricity, water, and heat supply, etc. The fourth part, the spring warmth felt at the cabin. With all the efforts, we began to admit patients on February 5th, and a large number of patients were discharged since February 7th. This picture shows it was snowing when the discharged patient departed. Wuchang Mobile Cabin Hospital started to receive and treat patients at 11 p.m. on February 5th and discharged the last batch of patients on March 10th. It operated for 35 days. To sum up, it can be divided into 3 stages. First is the initial stage, when it was easy to mess up and we had to strictly prevent the diseases of the patients from aggravating to danger their lives and even lead to death. The second is a stable operation stage, when there were a large number of patients flocking in and out the cabin, and we focused on improving efficiency and receiving more patients. The third is a closing stage. At that time, there were not many patients, and some patients failed to be cured after long treatment, as their chest films showed the inflammation was not absorbed and the nucleic acid test remained positive. In such circumstances, we needed to keep improving and work out personalized treatment solutions. In our mobile cabin practice, our hospital took in charge of 249 inpatient beds in Wuchang Mobile Cabin Hospital, received and treated 394 patients in total, and 290 of them were discharged. Totally, 1,124 patients were admitted to the hospital. We resolved the 3 major concerns and overcame the 3 major difficulties. We have achieved the 3-0 goal, and the mobile cabin hospitals in the city received and treated a quarter of patients in Wuhan. We have completed the strategic tasks of leaving no COVID-19 patients unattended, achieved the shift from patients waiting for beds to beds waiting for patients, and been fully affirmed by the leaders of the National Health Commission. We also made scientific reports, shared the basic experience of mobile cabin hospital practices in foreign magazines, and submitted the project declaration. Now, China has effectively contained the pandemic with concerted efforts by people of the whole country. And on March 18, Hubei reported 0 new cases. The number of new suspected cases and confirmed cases grounded 0. As of March 28th, a total of 81,394 confirmed cases were reported nationwide, among which 74,971 cases were cured. 2 new imported confirmed cases from overseas were reported on March 4th, and the number rose to 649 on 28th. Many mainstream media at home and abroad reported that the mobile cabin hospital was enormously effective and played a key role in controlling the epidemic. The large-scale application of mobile cabin hospitals is of great significance for the prevention and control of the epidemic, and provides ideas for future medical reform and social governance. China also fully affirmed the role of medical staff in the combat against the epidemic, and we have all been commended by the state. We are also willing to share experience of the mobile cabin hospitals with foreign peers. According to incomplete statistics, Xiangya Hospital have released 454 related news reports. As of March 27, 408,415 confirmed cases and 18,863 deaths have been reported worldwide. According to WHO, beds are in shortage in many countries. These countries could learn from China to use mobile cabin hospitals for the centralized isolation of mild patients. According to reports, Italy, Austria, Iran, and other countries have also built mobile cabin hospitals of different sizes. This is a group photo of our team. That's all for today. If you have any questions, please leave a message, and we will discuss later. Thank you.
感谢徐院长的讲述。徐院长对方舱医院从建设到修舱，尤其是
Director Xu has shared the establishment and operation of mobile cabin hospital. He also shared the difficulties and problems, as well as solutions. I believe that Director Xu's experience can be of a great referential value for nations that are building their own mobile cabin hospitals. Hoping these localized mobile cabin hospitals can help the world to surmount the pandemic. Coming next is the Deputy Director Zhang Renqing from Chengdu Public Health Clinical Center. As a specialized hospital of infectious diseases, Chengdu Public Health and Clinical Center took in the most number of COVID-19 patients in Chengdu. What measures have they taken to prevent cross-infection and treat patients? Please turn the screen to Director Zhang.
Hello, everyone. My name is Zhang Renqing. I serve as the Deputy Director of the Public Health Clinical Center of Chengdu, responsible for clinical medical work. I'm also the team leader of Chengdu Expert Team for Novel Coronavirus Pneumonia Treatment. I'm going to introduce how our hospital treated novel coronavirus pneumonia patients. Our hospital deployed the best manpower and spared no effort to rescue and treat patients in the epidemic. Our hospital has been responsible for the treatment of novel coronavirus pneumonia in Chengdu City, Sichuan Province. The main goals are to respond to emerging and accidental public health events by performing clinical rescue and treatment, and to rescue and treat patients with infectious diseases defined by law. The picture shown here is a floor plan of our hospital. In response to the novel coronavirus pneumonia epidemic, it can be run at 3 types of intensity. At low intensity, our hospital can undertake rescue and treatment work for less than 50 patients by using some buildings. At medium intensity, the Phase 2 building can be converted into negative pressure wards, which is able to accommodate 370 patients. At high intensity, our hospital can serve as an isolation area to rescue and treat 1,800 patients. Let's look at this picture. The top one shows the main buildings of our hospital, while the bottom one presents the negative pressure wards of our hospital for treating severe patients. Our hospital has carried out a lot of work before the epidemic, such as formulating emergency plans and organizational management plans, and segmenting specific roles. The following picture shows some of our hospital's laboratory and examination equipment, and how their work was carried out. Some are new and advanced equipment purchased by our own hospital previously, while others are funded by the government for this epidemic. The enough supplement of laboratory, examination and rescue equipment ensured that our hospital was under normal operation and work was carried out orderly. Prior to the epidemic, we had carried out emergency drills, the content of which ranged from emergency response to transport patients, to transferring the examination in wards. The results had been discussed by our expert groups to ensure the process is scientific, normalized, and standardized. This picture depicts our logistic support work. The protective coveralls we used either for rescue or for our daily use, and other protective materials were stacked orderly and identified with codes. Our hospital had also organized emergency teams. Currently, the 11th emergency team is on duty. Once an epidemic situation occurs, our team can return to designated positions within 30 minutes. Chengdu is a metropolis with a large population in and out every day, and it connects to more than 100 countries and regions with airlines and other traffic. Our emergency team has 40 members under normal circumstances, all of whom should be guaranteed to be able to work. During the epidemic, our clinical and other departments carried out work orderly. Our hospital admitted and treated the first case of novel coronavirus pneumonia in Sichuan province on January 16th. The manpower invested in the early stage was about 80 people. We divided rescue staff, such as doctors, nurses, and workers, into 4 shifts, with each shift working in turns. Shown here are our negative pressure ambulances, emergency personnel, and tertiary protective equipment, facilities, and clothing. When the epidemic situation became increasingly widespread, the government invested in renovating the Phase 2 wards for our hospital. This picture portrays our renovated negative pressure building with 370 beds. The building was put into use after 10 days of renovation. Here we can see the exterior decoration of corridors inside our negative pressure building. Engineers and our medical staff worked together to renovate the building complex so that it can be used normally. In addition to novel coronavirus pneumonia patients, our hospital admitted and treated patients with 39 kinds of infectious diseases defined by law. To ensure all work to be performed in an orderly manner, we pre-screened and triaged all patients who entered our hospital. In the picture on the left, the floor and tables were marked with fever signs to enable patients enter fever clinic by following the red arrows. This is another picture showing our staff were pre-screening and triage patients. This is a patient entering our hospital's patient channel for temperature measurement, registering, pre-screening, triage, and information entry. Patients were examined and divided after admission. Novel coronavirus pneumonia patients were admitted and treated according to different classifications and with specific targets. Treatment protocols developed by an expert group were customized for each patient. Here we show you the work carried out in the intensive care unit. We transferred patients to the intensive care unit in our negative pressure building. Staff working in the unit were composed of expert groups from the infection department, respiratory department, internal medicine department, nephrology department, and endocrine department, etc. They worked together, providing treatment and psychological interventions. This picture illustrates that they carried out a successful rescue. This is a scene where our staff in the intensive care unit worked together to rescue a patient. This is a picture of our staff discussing bedside with severely ill patients. In order to treat severe patients effectively and efficiently, in addition to experts from our hospital, provincial expert groups, including the West China Hospital team, came to our hospital to work on-site and form a group with our experts. The picture below is a scene of treating a moderate case of novel coronavirus pneumonia. This picture shows our staff were asking the medical history of a patient, conducting a physical examination, measuring body temperature. This is a scene of our experts engaging in discussion. This is a scene where our nursing staff were monitoring a patient's condition in wards. The following scene depicts our staff were treating the patient. To ensure treatment effectiveness, we implemented customized protocols to treat different patients. we integrated traditional Chinese medicine and Western medicine to effectively control disease progress, shorten duration of fever, relieve clinical symptoms, and alleviate adverse effects of antiviral drugs. Our hospital is responsible for the treatment of severe and critical patients in Chengdu City, as well as some moderate novel coronavirus pneumonia patients. The oldest patient we admitted was 87 years old, and the youngest 3 months. This is a picture of our nursing team nursing a 3-month-old patient. After patients with novel coronavirus pneumonia were admitted, they suffered from illness and experienced psychological problems. While treating these patients, our medical staff also provided psychological counseling. The picture shown below is an old lady whose condition has been successfully relieved, thanks to careful treatment and considerate care given by our medical staff. This is another patient who was treated successfully and was expressing his appreciation to our hospital staff before discharge. He also wanted to take a photo with our staff. The successful treatment of patients is inseparable from the efforts of our staff. The health condition of our staff directly determines whether our treatment is successful and whether they can serve patients effectively. This picture shows our infection control staff were checking the dressing of medical workers who needed to enter the unit for novel coronavirus pneumonia. Each medical worker was registered before entering the unit. Their physical health was evaluated and documented on the report. Doctors, nurses, and patients produced large amounts of medical waste due to the epidemic. Here are some pictures illustrating how we sorted, collected, transferred, and registered medical waste. This is a picture of special garbage trucks transferring medical waste. To ensure that medical waste disposal rate reaches 100% without emission and leakage. We achieved 0 infections through our efforts. Our hospital also sent experts to Wuhan City for treating local patients with novel coronavirus pneumonia. Thanks to the efforts of all hospital staff, especially the joint efforts of the medical, nursing, infection control, quality control, and other related departments, we successfully treated patients with 0 nosocomial infections and medical staff infections. From the admission of the first patient to the discharge of the last local patient on February 29th, we treated a total of 101 patients with novel coronavirus pneumonia, of whom 37 were severe or critical. This picture shows the leadership of Chengdu Health Commission met our staff and affirmed our work. In this picture, the leaders of the municipal government came to our hospital for work inspection, guidance, and deployment. Our work was affirmed by the government and supported by all walks of life. They donated materials to our hospital, including a large amount of protective equipment. When the epidemic became the most severe, our supplies were also tight. The supplement of materials came not only from the government, but also from all sectors of society. This picture shows the first patient of novel coronavirus pneumonia affirmed our work been successfully discharged. This picture has just been shown to you. It depicts that an elderly patient was grateful after successfully treated by our medical staff. This photo was taken with our medical staff when the last patient of novel coronavirus pneumonia was discharged. This is the thank you letter for our staff written by the patient in the ward when she was treated successfully but not discharged. This is my sharing today. During the whole rescue and treatment process, 3 points impressed me deeply. The first point is the normalization of emergency work in our hospital. We need to prepare and comb through emergency plans, materials, and working procedures before the outbreak occurs. Emergency drills should be conducted at least 4 times per year, and the results should be evaluated to continuously improve our emergency response capabilities. The second point is that patients with novel coronavirus pneumonia were classified and layered after admission to ensure the hospital ran effectively and efficiently. As a result, we had a large number of our cured patients discharged in a short period of time. We treated 37 severe and critical patients successfully and achieved good results. We improved cure rates and reduced mortality rates. The third point is that our protection and inspection for infection control was well in place. There were 0 cases of cross-infection in the hospital, and none of our staff were infected. Our achievements have been affirmed by the government, all sectors of society, and patients. Thank you. Friends overseas may leave questions in the comments section. We will answer you in the next section. Thank you.
从张院长的讲述中，我们可以看到成都市公共
From his sharing, we can see the outstanding performance of Chengdu Public Health Clinical Center owes to a competent emergency response system. Thank you, Director Zhang. In treating COVID-19 patients, nursing played an irreplaceable role. Next, we'll have the Chief Head Nurse, Madam Gao Xinlian, from Wuhan Union Hospital. She is also the team leader of Jianghan Mobile Cabin Hospital and acting secretary. Madam Gao will share with us nursing management of novel coronavirus patients in Mobile Cabin Hospital.
Hello, friends online. I'm the Chief Head Nurse from the Operation Unit of Union Hospital, affiliated to Tongji Medical College, Huazhong University of Science and Technology. I am very glad to share with you my nursing management experience in mobile cabin hospitals today. To start with, I'm going to talk about the nursing management of patients with novel coronavirus pneumonia in mobile cabin hospitals. A mobile cabin hospital responds to emergency public health events with good mobility. It has played an active role in containing the epidemic, especially in the treatment of patients with novel coronavirus pneumonia this time. A mobile cabin hospital is comprised of a medical care functional module, a ward module, a technology assurance module, and other modules. It is a modular equipment integrating functions of emergency treatment, clinical laboratory, and etc. It played a key role in the treatment of patients with novel coronavirus pneumonia in Wuhan, especially in the treatment, nursing observation, and isolation of mild and moderate patients. Wuhan Union Hospital took charge of 2 mobile cabin hospitals, Jianghan Cabin Hospital and Jianghan Development Zone Cabin Hospital. Jianghan Cabin Hospital was the first cabin hospital put into operation in Wuhan. It was also the cabin hospital with the most patients, starting to admit and treat patients from February 5th. Jianghan Development Zone Cabin Hospital was the second cabin hospital we opened, which was in my charge. The cabin hospital treated 281 patients, of whom 222 were discharged. The 2 hospitals admitted and treated a total of 2,129 cases of novel coronavirus pneumonia, during which period there were 22 to 25 national medical teams working in this hospital. Today, I would like to share the following 7 aspects from the perspective of nursing, mainly including preparation before putting to use a cabin hospital, the basic situation of nursing work in the triage area, clinical nursing work, nursing communication and coordination, nursing work outside the cabin hospital, and unique features of nursing work inside the cabin hospital. The first aspect is management before putting to use a cabin hospital. It took about 2 to 3 days to install a cabin hospital. Before a cabin hospital is opened, we must pay attention to procedure combing and improvement, and material preparation. We established a 3-zone and multi-channel system in our cabin hospitals. 3 zones include the clean zone, the potentially contaminated zone, and the contaminated zone. Multi-channels refer to the entrance for medical staff, exit for medical staff, patient-only access, safety access, waste access, etc. Procedures must be combed through before a cabin hospital is opened. Besides, it is required that these procedures must meet the technical requirements of the country. This is our experience regarding the 3-zone and multiple-channel system. The second aspect is preparation before opening the cabin hospital, especially material preparation. It is important to have all zones in the cabin hospital clearly identified. We need to prepare beds, patient supplies, doctor station, nurse station, required documents, nursing tools, medical equipment, disinfection tools and waste disposal, triage procedures, fire equipment, heating equipment, first aid equipment within an oxygen observation area, etc. Only by guaranteeing supplies before putting to use a cabin hospital can we open it and ensure the safety of our patients and medical staff. The second aspect is a basic introduction to the nursing work in a cabin hospital, particularly in Jianghan District Development Zone Cabin Hospital, managed by Wuhan Union Hospital. The cabin hospital was supported by medical teams from across the country. There were 7 medical teams, including 263 nurses. I represented Wuhan Union Hospital at that time and was mainly responsible for the management of 7 nursing teams. We first formed a 3-level structure upon arrival at hospital. I, as a nursing team leader from Wuhan Union Hospital, formed the team leader building structure with other team leaders from Guangzhou Province, Jiangxi Province, and Tianjin City. At the same time, 3 groups were divided under the team leader building structure: the comprehensive coordination group, the triage and screening group, and the clinical nursing group. Each group were given with different scopes of responsibilities, procedures, and management. This is our 3-level structure for nursing in a cabin hospital. Under such a structure, we have begun to implement procedures relevant to the structure, establish standard plans, and conduct orientation training. In terms of systems, we have established the cabin hospital management system, cabin hospital position responsibilities, the identity verification system for patients, the system for checking medication safety, etc. Many procedures have also been established, such as the collecting and transport procedure of throat swab samples, blood sample collecting and transport procedure, and the collecting and transport procedure of anal swab samples. As for emergency handling, we have established emergency plans for unexpected departure of cabin staff, fire emergency response plans and drills, and emergency handling for water and power cut in the cabin hospital. Regarding related standards, we have established standards for first-time nursing care, first-time evaluation, and observation records of nursing care for patients in a cabin hospital, according to the standards for mild and moderate novel coronavirus pneumonia formulated by Hubei Province. We have also worked out reports, supervision forms, and other tools relating to the humanitarian care services, health education and discharge guide for patients, and nursing quality tests in the cabin hospital. All of our 263 nurses have been trained in detail before admission of patients, and training content have been continuously improved according to relevant practices within our cabin hospitals. Therefore, it took 1 day to train medical staff before entering cabin hospitals, with 400 attendances in total. This includes training on infection control, procedures of putting on and taking off isolation gowns and protective coveralls, emergency handling of occupational exposure, disinfection of material surface, ground and air, fire emergency plans, etc. In particular, while quality standards, patient triage process, material security and other topics were trained by our own nursing staff, fire training and drills were conducted by personnel assigned by the Jianghan District Fire Brigade to ensure our safety in operation. The entire daily training also includes shift scheduling. We implemented a shift system that allows nursing staff and other medical staff enter and leave the cabin hospital in separated batches to avoid cross-infection. There are 4 procedures for implementing triage-based nursing care in shift scheduling, which are information screening upon admission, information check, information entry, and guided admission. When implementing cabin hospital separating management for nursing care, each medical team was responsible for 1 shift, and a total of 6 shifts were arranged. The team leaders of each medical team were in charge of shift scheduling for their own clinical and nursing staff, while the general nurse station was responsible for carrying out internal and external coordination, logistic support, inspection and supervision, cleaning, disinfection, security, and publicity. The 4th aspect is the basic situation of nursing. In terms of quality implementation and control, we have established detailed standards of nursing quality based on the regulations for the management of mild and moderate cases of novel coronavirus pneumonia and other similar regulations issued by the Health Commission of Hubei Province. Considering that nursing staff had to work under tertiary protection, we have streamlined nursing documentation. Most items on electronic documents only require a mouse click to place a check mark, ensuring the convenience of operation throughout the process. With regards to overall quality control, we have also established a clinical post-group leader responsibility system to perform clinical and nursing work. Specifically speaking, a group leader should be responsible for the implementation of initial evaluation, condition observation, medication safety, humanitarian care, communication and coordination, health education, and discharge guide. The 3rd aspect is about supervision and inspection by team leaders and video conference feedback. Every day, the nursing team leader of each medical team should check the operations and quality of patients' identity, medication safety, infection control, occupational protection, and sample collection in their responsible areas. We received feedback of existing problems through video conferences and proposed improvement measures based on the condition of cabin hospitals, leading to continuous improvement. How did we conduct nursing work for each area? For example, how did we screen patients who enter cabin hospital in the triage process? The admission criteria for patients in our cabin hospital follows the standards given by Hubei Health Commission. That is, only mild and moderate patients can be admitted. Those patients should have positive results in nucleic acid tests and be able to live independently with age over 18 and under 65 years old, and without serious heart, liver, lung, kidney, and brain organ dysfunction. They should also have no history of mental illness, with blood oxygen saturation greater than 93% and respiratory rate less than 24. If not meeting these criteria, patients should not be admitted. After admission, we would enter patients' information into the system. For the triage area, in addition to the 4 procedures for admission on a daily basis, we would also check the number of patients every day. At the same time, it is necessary to implement relevant procedures for discharged patients. It's our responsibility to contact personnel for nucleic acid sample transport, and to organize the electronic medical records of these patients every day. As of March 8, 2020, Jianghan Development Zone Cabin Hospital has discharged 222 patients and transferred 59. We archived medical records of discharged patients through an electronic information system to avoid cross-infection caused by paper documents. The patient identification accuracy rate reached 100%. The accuracy rate of patient profile information also reached 100%, with 0 case of irregular discharge. In follow-up, we would conduct checkups, give interventions, and check discharge information with patients. guaranteeing smooth information communication. The fourth aspect is clinical nursing. We divided the cabin hospital into 3 areas and assigned medical teams to match our nursing work. In total, 682 beds were set up in Jianghan Development Zone Cabin Hospital, among which 4 beds were for observation and emergency in areas A, B, and C. The 3 areas were supervised respectively by the nursing staff of the Guangdong team, Jiangxi team, and Tianjin team. Therefore, it is a unique feature for the cabin hospital that each team should be responsible for a certain area. Through matching each team to its own cabin area, different teams can cooperate very well. The admission of patients started on February 21st and ended on March 8th. The nurses collected a total of 607 nucleic acid samples and 271 blood samples, and assisted 281 patients in undergoing CT scans. Body temperature monitoring totaled 6,744 times, pulse measurement reached 4,451 times, and respiratory observation 3,370 times. These were the workloads that our nursing team undertook within 19 days, which met the nursing requirements for mild and moderate patients. Patient routine care implementation rate reached 100%. Execution rate of electronic nursing documents reached 100%. The pass rate of blood sample collection reached 100%. The pass rate of throat swab sample collection reached 97.3%. It reached 100% after we improved the procedure. We conducted psychological screening for 100% of patients in terms of depression and anxiety. Our intervention rate for patients with moderate to severe depression reached 45%. Our implementation rate of patient health education and discharge guide reached 100%. The most important point is that up to hospital's operation was suspended, medical staff had 0 infections, while patients had 0 deaths and readmission. This is a very optimistic result. The fifth aspect is communication and coordination of nursing care, which mainly focuses on material guarantee, in-cabin infection control and supervision, safety inspection, and asset management and handover. The sixth aspect is nursing care outside cabin hospitals. It is inconvenient for cabin staff to wear tertiary protective equipment while working, in either hearing, vision, or nursing care. Therefore, we move the checkpoint forward by using an extra cabin system to screen medical orders and to print and paste barcodes of nucleic acid test and blood samples. Medical staff in the cabin hospital only needed to perform simple work under tertiary protection, while all verification work was done outside the cabin hospital. Thanks to such working experience, we didn't have a single case of discrepancy between sample information and patient identity throughout the entire process, which also reduced the workload of our medical staff working at our cabin hospital. The nursing care given by our cabin hospital throughout its operation is very unique. As our group was comprised of various medical teams across the country, a unified management thinking was considered necessary. It is critical to focus on training and communication before opening a cabin hospital. After we temporarily formed the cabin hospital nursing team, we spent the whole day integrating and allocating work among staff with different roles on February 19th. The nursing department of Wuhan Union Hospital established various institutional processes and standard plans and conducted training. As a result, our nursing staff achieved 100% satisfaction rate in clinical nursing care. We provided nursing care for mild and moderate patients at the cabin hospital. The priority of procedure design was to meet the needs of patients. The second unique feature is a paperless nursing documentation. The novel coronavirus pneumonia patients we have served are contagious. Therefore, we built a paperless nursing system at Jianghan Development Zone Cabin Hospital. realizing paperless nursing throughout the workflow within the cabin hospital, including information entry, initial nursing evaluation, nursing observation records, work log, discharge and transfer, etc. This avoided cross-infection and ensured that nursing data was integrated, monitorable, and traceable. Another nursing feature at our cabin hospital is professional and humanitarian nursing services. We performed ASA anxiety screening and PHQ-9 mental health screening for every admitted patient. High-risk patients would be labeled, and one-on-one psychological interventions would be given by our nursing staff during shifts. For patients with moderate and severe mental health problems, we would actively communicate with psychologists outside the cabin hospital and let them serve patients inside. We combined psychological intervention and medication to solve the psychological problems of patients in our cabin hospital. By the time of suspension of cabin hospital operation, a total of 127 patients with psychological problems have received intervention, accounting for 45% of all patients. We have also intervened 5 patients together with a psychologist and achieved good results. The fourth nursing feature is the continuation of patient health education. The cabin hospital admitted and treated mild and moderate patients. After admission, patients didn't know whether a cabin hospital could function as a formal hospital. They were confused about the severity, infectivity, and prognosis of novel coronavirus pneumonia, while various rumors made them anxious. Therefore, based on the special needs of patients, our nursing team wrote intra-cabin health education materials and discharge instructions to promote rapid recovery of patients. Patients could apply these instructions during isolation after discharge, for which reason our nursing team received high praise. We have also established an emergency plan for unexpected departure of cabin staff. When wearing tertiary protective equipment, cabin staff may suffer from shortness of breath, dizziness, and even palpitations due to hypoxia, in which case they have to depart from the cabin hospital and must be accompanied by a medical staff. Assistance outside the cabin hospital should be provided by security personnel and infection monitoring staff. Tents and ambulances should also be prepared outside the cabin hospital. For those cabin staff whose condition is well, they will rest and receive oxygen therapy. If not well, they will be rescued in place or sent to the main campus of Wuhan Union Hospital for treatment. In the 21 days of cabin hospital operation, more than a dozen of our medical staff had to unexpectedly depart from the cabin hospital due to lack of oxygen or discomfort. Despite unexpected departure, our medical staff were promptly treated without any accidents. The cabin hospital has played a decisive role in the whole process for treating novel coronavirus pneumonia, especially for mild and moderate patients. Throughout the process, we also want to thank nursing workers from national medical teams as well as provincial medical teams for their strong support for Wuhan. As a staff working in the operation unit, I also want to thank operating room workers from all over the country for their care and support. I hope that after the epidemic, all medical workers who have helped Wuhan will be able to come here again for a second time. We can eat crayfish and admire the beautiful scenery of Wuhan together. Thank you all.
可以看到，高护士长是在工作岗位上与我们进行。
As we can see, Chief Nurse Madame Gao is sharing her information while working. Because in the mobile camping hospital, the medical staff come from different parts of the region, and it is a very complex organ. So, to have a unified scientific and orderly-made nursing management system and procedure is quite important. Hope this could be a valuable reference to other countries. While Wuhan is fighting against COVID-19, Zhongnan University Hospital is the one who made the early detection of the warning signals. And now, I'm going to have the dialogue with Director of the Zhongnan Hospital of Wuhan University, as well as the Director of Wuhan Nation Shan Hospital for a talk, please. Mr. Wang, we collected some of those questions that everyone are interested in. We'd like to share those questions with you. Recently, according to the media news, we know that medical teams from different regions are gradually withdrawn from Leishan Hospital, and many patients are gradually discharged. What's the status quo of the hospital? Currently, we have 112 patients, and around 2/3 of our medical staff are already withdrawn. But our work still continued, and those patients are still in the severe and yet critical stage. So my question is, when can Leishan Hospital be shut down? I hope it can be shut down in the early of May. And let me ask you another question. What is the governance and management structure of Leishan Hospital? I have to say, Leishan Hospital is an organization. It seems there's something wrong with the audio part. Okay. Leishan Hospital is a hospital with medical staff coming from different parts of China. We have 3,000 of them from 280 cities around China. Majority of them are not in respiratory sector, so our management is quite specific. We are having a medicine-oriented structure. And the priority of the structure is centralized treatment over the patient. We provide the suggestions and the guidelines for the treatment of each individual patient. And we have the unified standard and the treatment and protocol for the patients. More importantly, we also have experts of hospitalized infection, and we have around 20 kinds of such experts to make sure our caregivers won't be contaminated. So jointly speaking, we have a full workforce of making our work on track. And we have another team that is logistics and support team. This logistics and support team contains 1,000 staff. Majority of them are volunteers. They come in from every work of the society. They are not nurses, they are doctors. They are here to provide us the logistics and the daily supports. We have another task force named the Human Resources Group. They are responsible for the training and the registration of all the medical staff. And they are also providing the physical check for the volunteers and the training for the hospital-acquired infection prevention. And we also have another coordination team. We have 2 expert teams. It is really the lean management structure. Thank you. So I can say that we took a lot of efforts, and it is not easy to unify this team, especially the staff are coming from different parts of China. So what is the biggest difficulties you ever encounter in taking care of the epidemic? I think it would be the logistic support in the early stage of the epidemic outbreak. The Leishan Hospital was built from scratch. At the very beginning, we are truly in need of the logistics support, but at that time, we don't have any resources and a dedicated team for that. But it is very happy to say that we have a lot of people with a good heart. They are happy to support us and contribute their power to us. So we successfully went through that period of difficult times. Currently, we can see that the global epidemic is spreading with an alarming speed. So what is your specific suggestions to developed countries and developing countries in epidemic containing as well as the severe and the critical patient treatment? I think this is a very important question to our overseas doctors. Well, for the developing countries, I think mobile capping hospital is truly a good reference. Because you know that in-hospital treatment is just one part. if we have a huge number of the patients, and our medical resources would be overburdened, and the hospital won't be able to admit too much patients. The patient's number would extremely outscale the treatment capacity of the hospital. So for those developing countries, my suggestion is that we would take some countermeasures, for example, wearing the facial masks in public spaces. For example, today I'm sitting here in front of the camera. I don't need to wear the facial mask, but I still put it on my face because I want to give you a hint that wearing facial masks is quite important in preventing the virus. And we have to remind people how important facial mask is in protecting themselves. Well, for those critical and severe patients, you have to evaluate the epidemic trend of the city where the hospital is located. We have to have enough number of the ventilators, because here this moment of now, I say that ventilator is a very important supportive equipment to make the patient's life sustained. Otherwise, many of the patients lost their life because of the lack of the oxygen. We have to have the respiratory supporting equipment to support the patient, especially in the severe and critical stage. So what's your comment to the developed countries? Developed countries? Yes, I keep an eye on developed countries. I know that US is also in a challenging period of the time, because it seems that the whole society is mobilizing itself in taking some protective measures, especially the New York State and New York City. I say that they also launched some banning policies of preventing the public event from happening. But I see that still they are not encouraging the public and the medical staff to wear facial masks. I think this is quite important. The growth of the confirmed case in the US is now at an alarming speed. And they have to clearly identify the source of the infection and the suspicious case. If you don't wear the facial masks, everyone would be very easily to be contaminated. If everyone is getting together as a cluster without putting the facial mask on, and everyone is very likely to be infected. And the patient need to clearly understand they are being confirmed, they are going to be a source of infection. They need to be well managed. And I know that US is now taking some measures, but I think like US, as a developed country, they have to encourage the general public in developing the habit of wearing the facial masks. And I don't think those kind of mysterious type can actually prevent people from wearing the facial masks. Otherwise, it's gonna to be a detrimental factor for the future spread of the virus. I know that for some of the developed countries, they are also in need of the ventilator as the patient number is increasing. I think for those countries, they have to put some cash investment in order to prepare the beds and enough ventilators to support the patients. Thank you.
好的，就像您刚才说的，可能有
Thank you very
一些
much.
发达国家的
Just as you said,
自己都没有
some
戴好
medical
口罩
staff
那么我
from
们
the
从一些
developed
视频中也
countries,
看到
they
国外
themselves
的
are
医
not
护人员
wearing
防
facial
护不
masks.
足。
From some of the videos, I say that there's insufficient protective measures for the medical staff in those countries. So if they don't have enough protective measures, what's your suggestions? I think we have to divide them into two kinds. One kind of them are those doctors and nurses treating the confirmed case, where the second kind are those doctors and nurses that are providing the service to the general patient. I think for all the caregivers, they have to have some measures for self-protection and isolation. For example, putting masks on. And the reason why I'm putting my mask on in front of the camera is because I have a lot of friends. They are doctors in the US. They are worried. Some of their colleagues, they don't accept wearing the facial masks because they believe it won't help too much. Even if you're a doctor not contacting the confirmed case directly, but you still need to wear the facial mask because you're going to contacting with your colleagues who might just treat the confirmed case. Thank you. Thank you very much. We also call for the overseas medical staff to protect themselves so that they can provide better service to the patient. So let's go back to the beginning of the epidemic outbreak. When did you get the epidemic warning signals, and how did you get it? For my hospital, right before the 1st of January 2020, we have already accommodated 6 confirmed cases of COVID-19, and except the first case who has the direct contact experience of the South China seafood wholesale market, other 5 didn't. But after the test, we find out this is a highly infectious disease. So from the very beginning of January this year, we have already started to do some work at our lab, at our ICU to accommodate those patients. And we also started to persuade our medical staffs to put on some protective measures. So we started the work from the very beginning of January this year. So according to your experience, among the measures you took, what are those ones who need to be further improved? And I think improvements can be made at the very early stage. For example, we have the isolated ICU and the isolated clinic and isolated ward for those patients. But we didn't take enough protective measures. And even some of the doctors and the nurses working for other departments, they are not wearing facial masks. But you know that among those general patients, they went to other departments, and they were later being identified as a confirmed case. And they get contact with those doctors and nurses who never wear facial masks. And some of them are asymptomatic, and they went through the CT, and they started to become a new source of infection in the hospital. Some of those patients, right after the surgery, and that patient moved into that department and led to the infection of 15 medical staff of that department. So I mentioned, and you know, epidemic is in every city of the world. And even if, as medical staff, you're not treating the COVID patient, you still need to put on your facial mask. In the early stage, in Wuhan, and we persuade people to wear facial masks, where some medical staff from other departments are not wearing the facial masks. So I have to say some infected medical staff at my hospital is infected because they are not wearing the facial masks from the very beginning. So I would like to suggest the staff in other cities and other countries to remind themselves of this very important point. Thank you. Thanks for Director Wang. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Wang. And the experiences from Zhongnan Hospital and Leishan Hospital are of great referential value to domestic and international medical institutions. Coming next will be our panel session. I'd like to hand over the floor to Secretary Gong Shouping from the Second Affiliate Hospital of Xi'an Jiaotong University. He is also a neurosurgery expert. Currently, he's still in Hubei. Please. Thank you, Li Xia. I'm very happy to see Director Wang, Director Zhang, and Chief Head Nurse Madam Gao. I'm very happy to see you all on this platform to jointly summarize experiences and share with the rest of the world. Before this episode of the webinar, the organizing committee has collected questions from over this platform. The first question, let's refer to the video clip first.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Dr. Carlos.
请工作人员播放视
I am
频
the。Medical Director of Clinic Internacional in Lima, Peru. Thank you for the invitation, and it will be very interesting to listen to the Chinese doctors experts in COVID-19. The question that I have to request is that what would be your best advice for our caregivers in order to protect them to avoid to be contaminated by the COVID-19? Thank you very much.
龚书记，咱们可以开始了。
这位医生来自秘鲁。
This doctor comes from Peru. His question is, what would be your best advice for our caregivers to protect them to avoid to be contaminated by COVID-19? So I would like to welcome the Deputy Director of Chengdu Public Health Clinical Center, Mr. Zhang Renqing, to answer it, please. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please allow me to answer the question. First of all, COVID-19 epidemic is spreading all over the world. And for those patients, once being admitted into hospital, we have to do the triage to make sure different kinds of the patient be sent to different areas. If the patient is a suspected case, they need to be sent to fever clinic. In fever clinic, all the medical staff wear the working clothes and the medical caps, PPE, facial masks, and the latex gloves when necessary. That is a first level standard. Well, for the confirmed cases, especially those one who deliver them to the room, they have to wear the secondary clothes, including the caps, the facial masks, goggles, as well as latex gloves, shoes. Well, for some of those doctors, we're going to do the operations, incubations, and they have to wear goggles to prevent the aerogel of getting into their body for contamination purposes. Thank you. Thank you very much. The second question. How long your PPE last? How many PPE did you wear by day? Should we have the separate work clothes for the contaminated area and the testing area? And I would like to welcome the Chief Head Nurse of the Operation Unit of Wuhan Union Hospital, Madame Gao, to answer, please. Thank you very much. Thanks for the introduction. I come from Wuhan Union Hospital. I'm the Chief Head Nurse of the Operation Unit. My name is Gao Xinlian. I'm now take care of the mobile camping hospital of the Jianghan of the development zone of Wuhan. We admitted 281 patients. So some of the online friends asked that how many PPE do we need to wear by day? It truly depends on how many people are there working in that mobile camping hospital. If you are working in a hospital, it truly depends on how many medical staff, the public staff there. Where for our camping hospital, every day we have 500 units of the PPE for our staff. And we also have a designated material deployment department for the distribution of the PPE. And every day, we have the Wuhan, Jianghan district government to provide us the daily supplies. We actually have the inventory that can last 3 to 5 days. If we have a reduced inventory, we can ask for the supply from the government again. Well, the previous speaker mentioned about the 3 levels of the protections. Well, in the contaminated area, we adopt the 2nd level of protection. And for those who are working in the contaminated area are wearing the 1st degree protection clothes. And the zooming can help to protect our caregivers. It can also help to reduce the daily cost of the PPE. But I would like to suggest those ones get into the cabin hospital, it's better for them not to wear the work clothes. It's better for them to wear the long sleeve working clothes. It's tidy and easy to be cleaned by daily basis. Thank you. The 4th question or the 3rd question. Can you share your experience on how you effectively treat and manage those patients with severe acute respiratory infection? Thank you. Let's welcome the Deputy Director of 2nd Xiangya Hospital of Central South University, Xu Junmei, for the question. Thank you very much. Online. This is really a big question. You were asking about those patients, those COVID-19 patients with severe acute respiratory infection. You asked me how should we treat and manage them. I think these are actually 2 questions combined into one. The first question is that this patient is a COVID-19 patient, and at the same time, the patient also suffered from the hospital-acquired infection, for example, the bacterial infection. So the patient may also suffer from a severe acute respiratory infection. And my second interpretation is that COVID-19 itself is already a severe respiratory disease. So in this question, I'm not sure what you would like to ask, but let me answer your question in this way. If it is a COVID-19 patient with the hospital-acquired bacterial infection, and for those patients, we can use antibacterial drugs for treatment, and we can also provide the antifungal treatment according to our experience. But it's better for us to go through the test in order to confirm whether should we give the antibacterial or antifungal drugs for that patient. And the second side of this question is that as a COVID-19 patient with the severe acute respiratory infection, how should we manage and treat those patients? If this is a question our audience would like to ask, I think we have some clear solutions. In recent days, even if I'm still working in the mobile camping hospital and I'm treating some mild patients, but I also get to know some hospitals started to formulate their own solutions in treating the patient with severe and acute respiratory infection. And some of those patients may be developed from mild into moderate and even into the severe and acute stage. So in treating the patient, we can provide the standardized oxygen therapy, and then to provide them the non-invasive ventilator support, and even to provide them the HFNC treatment, and then to provide them the invasive ventilator support. And you can see ultimately the final step would be ECMO. This is the gradual treatment from the mild into the severe patient, and this solution has already been proved and valid. And in this way, we hope that we can treat the patient and especially centralize this patient, to centralize the resources, to centralize our expert resources, to have the centralized treatment. These are the full centralized strategies we are here have in China. So, mild patients being put together, moderate patients together, severe patients put together, and the critical patients were put together. And this is a centralized strategy that proved to be highly effective for treatment. Well, for specific treatment, and our experts find out early finding and early diagnosis is quite important, and especially for some asymptomatic mild patient, if they could be identified as confirmed case, you can provide them a truly effective treatment. The treatment protocols, for example, like HFNC, or the integrated therapy, or the sputum removal, those treatments are quite effective. So in the early stage of the severe patient, we can provide them the treatment of preventing them from getting the acute and critical stage. But if in the acute critical stage, the patient then needed to be incubated or intubated, and it is a standard procedure. My suggestion is that early diagnosis and early standard treatment and which proved to be quite effective. Thank you. Integrated treatment, specific and yet targeted treatment. Okay. The fourth question. You have the medical team members from different regions, and how you're going to talk and communicate with each other to achieve efficient collaboration. Let's welcome Mr. Wang Xinhuan, Director of Leishanshan Hospital, for this question. Good evening. I see all of our honored guests were working in Wuhan City before, and the Leishanshan Hospital is a hospital in treating the severe and critical patients, and we have a very easy communication mechanism that is a problem question-oriented communication mechanism. All medical teams, we have the internal communication structure, and if we have some further questions, we can escalate it to the hospital level. Well, for the doctor from overseas countries who mentioned about the severe patient management, I have to say a few words. First of all, we don't have the versatile drugs. And secondly, we have to early diagnose the patient in early stage of the severe patient, providing them, for example, like ventilators. Don't wait till too late. The third suggestion, and you have to train your doctors and your nurses to make sure they are working in a very good task force. Otherwise, it's going to be too late. You know that we have less experts in taking care of the severe and critical patients. As we are having an increase in patients, the doctor's number might not be enough in taking care of all patients. So we have to have the early boarding and early training to medical staff. At the Leishanshan Hospital, we did the early boarding and training to all of our nurses and doctors so that they can provide medical observation and treatment in a very professional way. And we are all targeting and treating the patient with the same disease. Early training would make the work much more smooth in the later stage. So I suggest the overseas doctors to start the early training to your caregivers as early as possible. Thank you very much. You know that for some of the hospitals, and we have the team members from different regions, and how you're going to talk to each other, to communicate with each other. First of all, I think each of the team and each of the area or hospital will have the specific treatment protocol. And secondly, try to reduce the physical meetup during the treatment stage. Try to use internet as a way of communicating the messages. Thank you very much. Thanks for Mr. Wang. Here's another question from Sudan. In Sudan, we have limited medical resources. How can we use the most cost-effective way of producing the disinfectant? And now let's welcome Mr. Zhang Renqing to answer the question. For the disinfectant, according to the disease prevention guidelines in China, the virus is quite sensitive to heat and to the ultrasound phase. And for example, 97 rate of alcohol can actually use to disinfect the virus, and the ultraviolet rays. So whatever resources you have, you can get the existing resources from your hand in treating the virus, especially for the virus disinfection. For the expert, I have to interrupt you. I'm sorry. And now we have 2 foreign speakers who are already online, and they are coming from different parts of China, of the world. And Mary Chen and those 2 experts would like to share their ideas with us and their questions with us, please.
Hi, I'm Dr. Hinzin. I'm the head of Epidemic Disease Department at the Directorate of Epidemiology and Disease Control in Ministry of Health. So in our country, we have we tested 3,402 patients for COVID, and 676 was confirmed as having COVID. Also, we have 39 deaths and 29 recovered. I have some questions about how we can manage especially contacts among healthcare workers when they are exposed without PPEs. And did you use chemoprophylaxis among them? This is my first question. And my second one is, what about treatment in pregnant women? Okay, which protocol we use in pregnant women? And the last one, please, about contact management. The contacts stay at home, or they are confined outside in hospitals, in hotels, or other structures. So I think that you can confine them, but I want to know about your strategy in confinement and also screening of contacts if it's available. Thank you.
好，第一个问题关于医护工作者
Thank you very much. The first question is regarding whether should we use the chemical protective agents to protect our caregivers. Let's welcome Mr. Wang Xinhuan to answer the question. Thank you. Well, for our medical givers, and they have to have the PPE as well as the work clothes and facial masks for different working scenarios. And the transmission also be divided into 2 parts: the aerogel contact or the kind of hand contacted source. So the hand disinfection is quite important. And I'm not sure what kind of chemical kind of paralysis you were referring to. I don't suggest the medical staff of taking the drugs. The second question, the Morocco also asked about the treatment over the pregnant woman. At my hospital, we admitted 3 pregnant women. One of them is a C-section pregnant women, and we also did a case that is to provide the delivery of the pregnant women as a confirmed case. If it is a pregnant woman with confirmed COVID-19 symptoms, the treatment should do as follows. You have to know whether the patient is a mild patient or the severe patient according to the severity of the symptom, and then to assess whether the fetals and the women should have the same treatment. Well, for those severe and critical patient, and you have to communicate with the patient and their relatives to confirm a solution. Well, for the mild patient, we have to make sure we try our best to provide them the treatment of the COVID-19 and at the same time to provide enough protection measures over the fetals. Where for the mild patient, we suggest of using some TCM, for example, like 莲花清瘟 granular for the treatment as an integrated therapy for the antivirus treatment, where at the same time, we can also use some immune enhancement bioagent. Where for the COVID patient and who is also going to receive the C-section, we have to do a very prudent procedure preparations right before the surgery. Right before the C-section surgery, all the medical staff should have at least the third-level protections. Well, for our case, that patient, the pregnant woman is confirmed with COVID-19 as a positive case, but the fetals after being delivered is inactive case. This is a good news in the reality. So, jointly speaking, for those COVID patients as well as pregnant women, we have to provide them the treatment by assessing their symptoms, try to reduce the dosage of the medication and the impact of the medication over the fetals. Well, for the severe and the critical patient, we suggest not using the high concentration oxygen therapy. Otherwise, it's going to cause some vision problems for the newborn baby. And the third question, that's also welcome Mr. Zhang Renqing to answer the third question. I have a few comments to share with you. On Lancet, we published an article in talking about the mom-baby transmission, and we have 16 pregnant women confirmed with COVID-19, but we find no transmission to the baby, and we find out the treatment to that 16 pregnant women means we have to protect the fetals while treating the COVID pregnant women, and also have a standard procedure when we perform the C-section surgery. Thank you. Mr. Xu, please answer the third question. Thank you very much. I didn't hear the third question very well. Can you repeat the question? What kind of solution did we adopt in order to treat the patient? Especially, I think she really wants to know the protocols we adopted in treating the COVID patient. I think the same as the previous speakers mentioned, we have to have the triage treatment. Severe and the critical patients are receiving the treatment at the same time, and mild patients being isolated. We have to have the targeted treatment, antivirus treatment, and oxygen treatment. Till this moment of the day, I don't see any antivirus drugs that are highly efficient, like Rabidor, like Clearer, as well as other things, they may leave the patient with many side effects. So you have to adjust the protocol according to the patient's symptoms. Thank you very much. Do we still have more questions? And of course, our expert from Poland need to receive a patient immediately, so she has to leave the webinar. And now let's continue with other questions. Okay? And the next question for the suspected children patient, how should we treat them? What are the specific steps? And why don't we have Madame Gao to answer the question? Thank you very much. Well, for the suspected children patient, the incidence is pretty low. And I know that during the epidemic outbreak in Wuhan, and we have the assigned hospital for the children patient, and those patients being sent to the pediatric hospital of Wuhan. I consulted the staff from that hospital. We have the assigned treatment to the children. And according to the features of the patient, to provide them targeted yet specific treatment. For the suspected children patient, we provide the following treatment. One would for each patient with the family relatives as accompaniment, but the family relatives also need to take some protective measures. And the patient will be treated in the isolated ward. And we suggest family members don't follow the patient into the ward. And it is the doctor and the nurses who take care of the pediatric patient. And we encourage the video as well as the telephone calls between the children patient and their family members to comfort them, to provide them the physical consulting. Next question. And the next question is how important is ventilator and ECMO in treating patients, as many hospitals don't have enough of those equipment. So let's welcome Mr. Xu Junmei to answer the question. Thank you very much. If one hospital is lack of the invasive ventilator and ECMO, whether it is going to impact the treatment to the patient. As I have already introduced, we have the mild patient and moderate patient, severe patient, critical patient, and even some asymptomatic patient. We provide them the standard oxygen therapy. If the oxygen therapy is not working, then we have to provide HFNC and the non-invasive ventilator. And if it not work, we use the ventilator, the invasive one, or the intubation. If they still failed, we use ECMO. I see that I take invasive ventilator and ECMO as the last resort. From a medical perspective, from a protective perspective, ventilator and ECMO are the last resort. We have to improve the life of the patients. Otherwise, some of the patients, they lost the window opportunities. If we don't have the ventilator and ECMO in the hospital, then you have to identify that patient in the early stage of severity, provide them early treatment, prevent them from getting into severe and critical stage, and that might work. Thank you. So you have to have early diagnosis and early treatment to prevent patient from getting into severe and critical stage. And another question, a very similar question to the previous question. If it is a COVID-19 mom who gives birth to a newborn baby, what would be the infection control and clinical management to both mom and baby? And let's welcome Mr. Zhang Renqing to answer the question.
这一类，母亲是确诊，
If the mom is a confirmed COVID-19 patient, I have to say that I didn't encounter such case in my work. But I would like to suggest, and we have to put them into the negative oxygen ward. And the newborn baby need to go through the test. If it is a negative case, then we have to have the newborn baby nursing team to take care of the newborn baby, and the mom will be placed into the negative oxygen room for further treatment. If the baby is a positive case, then the mom and the baby can put into the same ward for treatment. Thank you. Thank you. The next question, well, for those severe patients, do you have the guidelines to provide them the palliative care, or some of those patients who may have the functional or mental limitations? Thank you. Now, I would like to welcome the director from Zhongnan Hospital and Mr. Chen Zhenshun, who is the director of the Respiratory Disease Department and who is very famous for the diffusive pulmonary disease as well as the severe respiratory disease, and he is expertised in the treatment, diagnosis, and the rescue of the severe and critical patients. And he is also very famous in using the biopsies, the ventilators, and intubations in treating the patient. So I would like to welcome Professor Chen to answer the question, please. Well, thank you very much. For those patients in the severe and critical stage, palliative care is quite important because for those patients, they may have the respiratory failures and they also have some a basic disease, and they have to suffer from the physical pain from the treatment. And many of those patients are also psychologically distressed. When they are working in an isolated room, it is a small environment. They were isolated from their family members. So for those patients, they also suffered from great psychological distress. So for some of those patients, the palliative care need to be given to the pain relief of their psychological support, and especially to reduce the pain physically. And at the same time, for those patients who also have some basic disease, for example, like the gastric tract and the cardiac disease, you have to take care of those basic disease of those patients. And we also need to take care of the pain relief from the COVID-19 treatment itself. We have to have an expertized team of doing that. For example, during intubation, the patient may suffer from a lot of the pain. We have to provide them some of the pain relief. Well, the second part is the psychological intervention. The psychological distress also need to be supported and also need to be providing the counselors to help the patient and their family relatives to make sure they may have some communication by using phones or by using the video way. Well, for some of those patients who may suffer from mental illness, for example, dementia, and they have to go through the psychological counseling and to prevent them from the secondary damage. For example, the suicide intent. These are quite important. The final stage is that for some of the patients in the final stage of their life, and they have less possibilities to survive. Well, for those patients, we have to respect their dignities in the final stage of their lives. Thank you. The next question. We have a question from Colombia, who is intensive cardio surgery, and who said, what is the most appropriate time for medical staff who contacted patient to do screening? What is the frequency of screening? Do you still need screening if the caregiver shows no symptoms? Oh, you mean the screening over the medical cares? It need to be divided into 3 parts. The first part, when our medical staff contacted the patient. And, for example, if we get into the contaminated area, ICU, and the fever clinic, all those caregivers need to go through the COVID-19 screening. And if they successfully go through the screening, they will then be allowed in providing the medical staff to the patient. During the epidemic outbreak in Wuhan, and the caregivers need to work 3 to 4 weeks. And during that period of time, if our doctor or nurses, they show the symptoms of fever, they have cough, well, in that situation, we will ask them to go through the screenings again, including their antibody CT and the initial screening. And if they were being confirmed as infected case, they will need to receive later treatment. If they are being excluded from confirmation, they need to take a few days off as a rest. And working every 3 to 4 weeks, they have 2 weeks as rest. We call it as an isolation duration. On the 30th or the 40th day of the rest, and we will inform our caregivers to go through the nucleic acid, antibody, and the CT screenings again. And if the caregiver is proved to be healthy, they can resume their work and go back to hospital to provide medical service. One more question. Can you share with your experience for the drugs like chloroquine? And let's welcome Mr. Xu Junmei to answer the question. This is a very good question because everyone pays attention to those drugs, especially all the COVID-19 related doctors and the nurses. We pay attention to chloroquine. And I'm working at Wuhan Mobile Camping Hospital. We take 100% of the TCM and ritonavir, but I know that for some of those hospitals, they don't use the chemical drugs. They only use TCM, and the recovery rates are almost the same, even if the hospitals are taking different protocols, different drugs for the patient. And I find out there are so many protocols in the market, including the chloroquine, and they are proved as valid, but that's not from the clinician's eyes. And we also have protocols like interferon in the market, but we still believe respiratory treatment is still the number one. Well, you were asking about chloroquine. I see that till the 29th Feb, we have 69 treatments of chloroquines and hydraulic chloroquines, and 3 for the combined therapy of the chloroquines and hydroxychloroquine, and the treatments are all proved to be effective. Chloroquines can help to release the symptoms and to shorten the treatment course. So that's why in the 7th version of the treatment protocol guidelines, and we identify chloroquine and can actually be used as 500 micrograms for those patients from 80 to 65 years old, and from the day 3 to day 7, and once per day. And these are the dosage and the treatment course we suggested in version 7 treatment guidelines. And you can then read the specifics from the media press. And I know that pharmaceutical test shows it's effective, but clinical experience still need further proof. And more questions. What is the best protocols for the elder patient? Elder patient is that the COVID-19 is going to lead to the pulmonary damages and then multi-organ damages, and also help to work with the basic diseases of the older patient. If we don't treat them very well, it's going to lead to bad consequences. Our treatment experience is that we have to have the early treatment and early diagnosis. It's also being asked by the Chinese government, how should we do that? We have to have early diagnosis, test, and experiment one step further, and to have one step ahead intervention and more refined nursing and treatment, and one protocol for each of the individual patient. And China is also exploring and launching the new guidelines for the COVID-19 treatment protocols. And especially, you can see in China, for interleukin-6. Interleukin-6 may lead to the cytokine storm. And we find out interleukin-6 is a very good prognosis biomarker. And by having the early stage testing, and we can help to take some prejudgment over the condition, and we also promote the monoantibody plus the blood therapy to treat those severe and critical patients. The result shows to be effective. And we also started to have the early treatment in order to have the multi-point treatment to sustain the patient's life, of preventing them of getting into severe and critical stage. And we all started to have the high dosage treatment protocol. In easy words, in the early stage, we use the high dosage vitamin C. We have a proposal of the high dosage short treatment course of the vitamin C for those patients. It can have a very good antioxidant performance to help to reverse the respiratory tract infection. And for those patients, we find out it's quite effective. Because the dosage of the vitamin C is related to its efficacy. Short treatment course means less than 1 month, and combination therapy means that along with the vitamin C with a high dosage, and along with the condition of the patient, we suggest 100 microgram for 1 kilogram of the body weight. And to have the treatment, and one treatment every 12 hours on day 1, and from day 2 to day 5, and 2 times a day. Well, for severe and critical patient, 200 microgram per kilogram of the body weight. And after this kind of high dosage vitamin C treatment, we see that the patients are being treated effectively. Well, another part is that for some of the patients who are mentally distressed in the inhospitalized stage, it is a commonly seen scenario. COVID-19 is a new disease and a new virus to us, and we now don't have the best treatment measures yet. So for those mentally distressed patients, how should we provide them the psychological intervention? We can use the psychological meters and the tables to truly understand the psychological distress bottom line of those patients, and also provide them some dynamic monitoring by providing the daily check with the patient and the psychological consultings from our psychological experts. We can provide the support to the patient, where I think the humanized support is quite important too. For example, we have to have the psychological and the communication with the patient. We're isolating the virus rather than the friendships and the love between people. So I think the psychological intervention is quite important. We also have other overseas audience who truly want to know some TCM treatment here in China. As some of the experts mentioned, when we treat a COVID-19 patient, we use 莲花清granular and 清叶快毒 granular. They are all working very well as TCM drugs for the treatment. And we also find out according to the symptoms from the patient, and we provide the preventive measures by not taking care of the symptoms, but also the root cause of the disease. For example, we have the 正气贴, as well as some physical and rehabilitation support, and the mental distress and the immune capacity of the patient would be recovered. And we received positive response from the patient and even from our medical staff. Some of our medical staff also started to use the TCM pads as well as the treatment to help them to restore their capacity and the immune system, as we don't have the best treatment yet. So the combined therapy is quite important. Thank you very much. Thanks for all the experts of sparing your time of joining us for the roundtable discussion. Thank you very much. And now, please allow me to give the floor back to our hostess. Thank you very much. In our back-end platform, we received some questions from our overseas audience. We translated into Chinese. We would like to share with you. In an isolation room with ventilator, if the patient also suffered from chronic disease as diabetes and hypertension, how should we provide the treatment and the diagnosis to this patient? So, Professor Chen, would you like to answer the question? Professor Chen, please. If the patient have the basic disease, for example, chronic disease with a ventilator, they may suffer from diabetes and hypertension. It's typically for the elder patient, and this will also impact their further progression. And if the patient has a diabetes, the higher glucose and the higher blood pressure is easily to be seen because many of the patients are in the distressed status quo. Well, the key for this question is that we have to have effective yet continuous monitoring and surveillance of the patient, and then to provide them the targeted therapy. For example, if the patient suffered from the diabetes, we can provide them insulin treatment. Well, for hypertension patient, we may prescribe them some oral drugs. Well, for some patients, if they still need further treatment, we can have the intravenous injections, and it truly depends on the continuous yet dynamic monitoring to formulate the specific solution to that patient. The next question, how you are going to follow the mild patient and how you're going to have the follow-up visit to the patient who discharged from the hospital. Madame Gao, would you like to answer the question? Thank you very much. Well, nowadays, for those discharged patients, for example, at the mobile cabin hospital, and they have to go to the isolation checkpoint of the community to stay for another 2 weeks. And they will be assigned to the community checkpoint for another 2 weeks of isolation, and then they will be discharged back to the community. Same as the hospital, we have the assigned hospital and the checkpoint for the clustering isolation, and they will not be allowed to be discharged back to their home from hospital directly. We have a big common center with a very big network. In that network, work. We have the patient information and online team to provide the dynamic support. Any comment from other experts regarding this question? If not, the next question is about the medical waste. Where does those medical waste being sent to from the hospital? Mr. Wang, would you mind to answer the question, please?
Thank
you very much. For medical waste, and even including the daily waste of the patient, they may be contaminated with the virus, so we have to burn them into the furnace as a way of disposing. Thank you. One final question. Is it needed to use the special work clothes, for example, the special work clothes for the Ebola virus? And so, Mr. Zhang, would you mind to answer the question?
根据我国目前对新冠肺炎防控和医护人员的感染情况，这些所有的综合起来，按照我们国家的分类分层防护，是能够完全有效的可以遏制的。
The existing workload is enough to prevent our staff from further contamination. We don't need a higher level protection anymore. First degree, second degree, and third degree protection standards are already enough to make sure that our medical staff will not be exposed to the contaminated area. So, one more comment. I think the working clothes that referred to in the question is the standard work clothes we are using at our hospital. He mentioned about the work clothes for Ebola, and that is actually and exactly the work clothes we use in the contaminated area in the COVID-19 assigned hospital. And we need to use those special work clothes. And I know that some of those overseas doctors are just using the protective clothes, but as in China, we are actually using the specific work clothes, the same level as Ebola virus in our contaminated area. For the work clothes, we have the biosafety one and the public health one, and in COVID-19 treatment, and the treatment protective clothes is already reaching the third level. And I know that different countries may have different characterization over those work clothes, but at least the work clothes here in China is safe enough for our staff to use. I think we should never overprotect. Overprotect is also not necessary. I say this is also a piece of the scientific information from the expert to our general public. Thank you very much. Thanks for all the experts. And by the end of the webinar, is it possible for our expert to use just one sentence to give your blessings to the rest of the world or summarize your treatment experience? In front of the pandemic, no one is going to live alone. We have to have a scientific prevention, good treatment and diagnosis, fully mobilize the society and the public. And only by so doing, we could be successful. And I believe the successful day belongs to the whole world. Let's join our hands together to embrace that brighter day. Thank you. We look forward to that better day. And Mr. Wang, please. Infectious disease prevention is not only the work of the caregiver, but we need to mobilize resources from every work of the society. Mr. Xu, please. Thank you. I think one lesson I learned from my daily work is that we successfully go through the COVID-19 challenges No matter it's the caregiver or the non-caregiver that is a public, we all need to have some basic knowledge over the hospital-acquired infection. As long as you have that piece of the information in your mind, you will be able to protect yourself very well. Thank you very much. Mr. Zhang, please.
谢谢主持人。
Thank you. Thanks for the hostess.
每一位人
As all human beings, every of us has the confidence to join our hands together as a synergy to protect ourselves. We will surely be win together. Thank you very much. Thanks for building the confidence to all of us. Madame Gao, please. Thank you. Thanks for the hostess. We would like to share the Chinese nursing experience to work with our international colleagues for the challenges. Thank you. Thanks for the information sharing and the blessings. It will be taken to every part of the world. Let's join our hands with all countries in the world and hope that the epidemic would be contained as early as possible so that we can embrace the lovely sunshine right after the storm. And now it's already 2021 on the 2nd of April, Beijing time. Here comes to the end of the webinar, and our following series is going to be launched very soon. Thank you very much. Goodbye.